We are amazing because our passion is limitless and our drive is intense. Therefore, you will not deny our grind. You are now listening to the Faith, Grind, and Inspire podcast.
Welcome back to another great episode of Faith, Grind, Inspire podcast. I'm your host, Gene Alert.
And I am Jeffrey Patrick, the co-host with the most and the toast.
And the toast.
Let's do this.
And today we have a very special guest.
Very special.
Very special guest.
A fellow alumni.
Columbia.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I'll let you introduce.
Dr. Brenda Marshall is here to talk up a little bit about her book, Becoming You.
Yep.
Right?
I love that title.
It is a manual. Right?
It is a manual.
It is a manual.
It's a happiness manual.
Yes.
No.
Like you said, it's a choice.
No. Dr. Marshall. Happyful.
It is happyful.
Happyful manual. That's what it is.
Happyful manual. Okay.
You are going to be so happyful when you read. I read it and I made 127 note cards.
She's like, oh God.
No, seriously. I was in there reading it, and it was definitely something that's worth reading because not only it have you thinking about change.
Yeah.
Right? You think about change and how important this thing called change is to being a part of your life, and how you must go ahead and kind of roll with the punches. Right, Doc?
Absolutely.
All right.
In fact, it was supposed to be called Change Junkie, but they said that nobody would want to read a book if it had Change Junkie as its title. So we kind of switched it around. But it does require you to sort of have an addiction to changing yourself.
Yeah. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, Doc, and how you came about writing this book, and how we are here today.
We don't have enough time. Wait a second. So I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner.
Right.
I'm also a full professor at William Paterson University, and I teach research in psychiatric nursing. And I also work in a hospital as a psychiatric nurse in Teaneck, New Jersey, a great hospital.
That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. But, it doesn't seem like I work at all. So something is right.
Yeah,
something
that's awesome.
is right. Over the past 5 years, I've written 4 books.
Wow.
So something is right because I don't seem to. I go to sleep at an early time.
Yeah.
I wake up at a late time. And I don't.
And you accomplish everything.
And I'm calm. So I kind of came about writing Becoming You because I used to teach a marketing program at Montclair State University. And I realized that to be successful at anything, you have to be willing to embrace the next thing. You have to be able to identify what is the next thing going to be. Most of the jobs we have today won't even exist in 10 years. And most of the jobs that will be here in 10 years, we don't even know what they are yet. So one of my students had said to me, this was a great course, but what happens after I graduate? What am I going to do? Right. How am I going to remember all these things that you've told me I should be doing? Please write a book. So I wrote the book, and he...
awesome book.
Yeah, thank you. He wrote to me, and he said, it's very short, but I know it's very heavy.
No. Don't be fooled.
That's what he said.
Do not be fooled by the size of this book.
That's right.
It is intense, and it has you thinking outside the box like you would not believe. I told you I read it, and I got 127 notes that I was like, you can't help but to go through it and be like, wait a minute, it's like, what did I've never really thought about this, especially when it comes to being who you want to be,
right?
Being
not meeting other people's expectation, who they think you should be, but figuring out, well, what was it that I wanted to be, and not giving it up.
One of the things that I walked away from that book that is ingrained in my psyche right now, and I've never really computed it, you have no control over no one else but yourself.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And the book really stresses that to an extent because it talks about the right?
Yeah.
The preemptive reaction options. Is that what it is, right?
Yeah.
Right? So you think about that. I know you guys probably didn't read the book yet, but I don't want to get into the book because I feel like we really don't have enough time.
I know.
We don't. So what I want to do is I want to concentrate on the martial law.
Okay, which one?
All of them.
All of them.
We're going to go through these laws, and I want you to I figured you can actually, because reflectively, when you talk about these laws, you know what I'm saying? Martial law number 1.
Most important. It is. It's the most important one.
Lack of time is not a valid excuse.
Ooh. You know how I love this one. Okay.
Now, tell me, where do you go from there?
Yo, I love this.
Yeah,
That's how we started?
Yeah, that's how we started.
I tell people all the time, you can't manage time, you can manage tasks and your energy.
Right.
So I would love to, so tell us.
Well, though everybody always says, I'd love to do that, but I just don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sorry, but I don't have time this week to fit that in. And in fact, if you don't have time to fit it in, what you're telling me is, I'm sorry, but what you're telling me is just not really important to me. So I'm going to do other stuff. I got this list of tasks, and I'm just going to keep checking them off because it feels really good to just check these off. And yours doesn't fit into the list that I already have factored up. And so, no. Instead of saying, you know what? What you're saying to me is something that I actually want to do. I can get rid of something else. I can reorganize this list so that I say yes to everything. I mean, that's how I've published all these books. I've got 2 more coming up, one that's a sequel to Becoming You. Because if it's important to you, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
You know, one thing being in medical school has taught me a very important lesson. In medical school, I learned it becomes important if you make it important.
Yeah. It's what you shine the light on that you are actually going to focus on.
It's very important that you realize this. You realize...
And there's another skill. There's a skill that people have now that's just fabulous. When you look at your phone and you realize your battery's low and going low, what do?
Run to a charger.
And if you don't have a charger, what you do is you go to
the battery
and you go low battery, and then you get rid of every single app that's open. You just flick it.
You're eating into my power.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what we don't do in our life. We don't stop and say, how many open apps do I have in my brain right now? I have to call my mother. I have to call my sister. I can't call my sister. Oh, that's my best friend calling. I know that's going to be a 45-minute phone call. I'm just not going to answer it.
Yeah.
Instead of saying to people, I turn off my phone between 2 and 4 in the afternoon because it's my time.
Yeah.
Just my time.
Yeah.
If that's bad for you, then you don't really like me.
You're not going to...
From 2 to 4.
2 to 4. Or 6 to 8. Whatever time works for
2 hour
you.
period. 2 hour.
Yeah. And if you can't do 2 hours, do 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Find out who is not going to respect the fact that you need to say, this is my time. I have time for this. I do. I make time for me.
Yeah, that's important.
That is super important. Like during my undergrad, it was 6 to 12 at night from the morning.
6 to 12?
No, seriously. You had to put in some time when you were studying. Like you don't have time for anything else. You understand? You're not available for the party.
Right.
You're not available for that. Okay? You're available
unless the party is actually what you want and you don't really want to be in school after all because someone else pushed you in there.
Exactly. So that's something totally...
But that's how you make time for what's important to you.
That's right. Law number 1.
No, Marshall's Law, yeah.
Martial law number 1. Martial law number 2. Your behavior cannot depend on someone else. You are in control of yourself, your choices, and your behavior. Using other people as an excuse for not succeeding is no longer valid and will, over time, turn into an undermining alibi.
Oh.
Yeah, I love undermining. I love undermining alibis. We all have them. You know, I'm sorry, I just couldn't do this because my dog got sick. We start them really early. When we're little kids, we try to figure out which one of the alibis that we can use to our parents will get me out of having to do what I have to do. I just don't know how to wash the dishes that well.
Yeah, my son's starting now at 3.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, oh, my stomach hurt. I can't eat no more.
But it becomes an undermining alibi if it works. If he says, hey, listen, my stomach hurts, I can't eat anymore, you say, well, then let's get you something that you can eat.
I want you to do something for me, Doc. I want you to elaborate a little bit on undermining alibi. I want you to give us a clear definition, a didactic definition.
Okay. Well, we all know what an alibi is.
Right.
Alibi is something, it's a lie.
Right. Basically,
Okay, it's a lie.
Basically.
But an undermining alibi is one that gets you out of doing something in the moment, and then because it works, you keep going back to it. And then it gets you out of things that you actually should be present for.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of your go-to fallback. I can't do that. And not lack of time is one of the best undermining alibis.
Mm-hmm.
But also saying, I'm old. I'm old. All right? I'm not really old. I mean, I expect another 25 years, but I can use that. That could be my undermining alibi.
Right.
I'm sorry. I can't make it.
I got a broken hip.
I got a broken hip, or I just can't. I can't
My
do
car's
it.
not working.
My car's not working, or I need a new car.
Yeah,
That's a
I
much
need a
better
new
one.
car.
I need a new car, and I just can't afford it. But in using those undermining alibis, so then I end up believing them.
When I came across this undermining alibi, it ultimately meant that I have to take this as the truth.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
This is going to
start
become
believing
my
it.
truth, yo.
Yeah. And you're defining why you can't get what you want. And then you embrace why you can't get what you want. And then you become really paralyzed.
Yeah. And how can you become the person you want to be if you're supportive or the corroborating thing that's your alibi
Right.
is actually undermining you?
And then somebody says, oh, wow, Brenda Marshall's got some fabulous energy.
Yeah.
I really want her to come in, and I really want her to do like a podcast.
Yeah.
And the other guy says, yeah, she's old.
Oh my
Like,
God.
I tried to have lunch with her yesterday, and
Yeah,
she said,
she's-
I'm a little tired.
Yeah.
That might not be the right person for us. And then suddenly, I'm not even there to defend what I want, because my undermining alibi has been given to enough people that enough people look at it and say, it's not a good fit.
And then
So now that
Now you
blocks
don't
the
even,
blessings.
right? You don't even have the opportunity to speak up for yourself.
You see this, entrepreneurs?
yeah,
This is
Go ahead,
because this
Gene.
podcast is all about the mindset of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's why I
And-
was loving the
and this-
becoming you.
yeah.
She's
And that's one of them.
Dr.
you know?
Marshall has the key
Yeah.
to becoming you because it's a manual.
It is a manual.
Yes.
When I was in my early 20s, both of my parents died. They both died 6 weeks apart.
Wow.
So on January 1st, my dad died jogging, and then on February 14th, my mom died, and her heart stopped. And I was young. I didn't know what to do. And my whole life, I wanted to be an actress, a singer, a dancer, an actress. But I was a nurse. And I was an ICU nurse at Beth Israel when there was a Beth Israel.
Oh yeah,
Intensive.
And very intensive, right?
Intensive.
I went on a holiday and somebody had chest pain, and I had eaten lunch with somebody who was a nurse. They came running to get me, and I went and took care of this lady, because that's what I did. And then I went back to my little studio apartment on 17th Street and 1st Avenue. And about 2 weeks later, the phone rings, and there's a voice on the other end said, "Hello, Brenda? This is Fifi from Paradise." Because it was in Paradise Island.
Yeah.
We need you. Can you be our nurse, please? I said, oh my God, I can't do that. I'm a nurse. I'm an ICU nurse. I have my own apartment. I got a car. You know, I can't give up all this stuff that I worked so hard for. Yeah. And I said, give me a week. And the next week he called me back. And on the way home from work, which was 1 block, all right, a truck came by, splashed me. Back then you wore a white uniform, splashed me with this dirty water, New York City water. We had 10 codes in a 12-hour period. I'm in my 20s. I'm thinking, this is a horrible life. I'm surrounded by death and destruction. I get up to my little tiny apartment, which now seems so small. I answer the phone and I hear, hello, Brenda? It's Fifi. Are you coming to paradise? I said, oh, yeah, hell yeah. I'm on my way. I'm out. And I took a leave of absence and spent the next 4 years of my life overseas. I learned how to speak Spanish. I learned how to speak French. I learned how to speak Arabic. I lived in Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt. I lived in Tahiti. I lived in the Mauritius Islands.
Nice.
I lived everywhere because I learned that when people said to me, can you do this? I'd say yes. So I had this opportunity to meet and work with some of the guys in Santana. And they said, well, can you sing? And I said, I'm from New York, man.
Yeah.
Of course
I didn't say yes.
Oh, you did?
I just said I'm from New York. And then they said, can you dance? Well, I was a rollerblading dancer in New York, but I, for fun. I said, I'm from New York, man. Like, just put me up there. And so I got to do European tours.
Yeah. Wow.
I got to do, it was crazy. The day that I left Paris, I was sitting at a table, and there were all famous people at the table, and me. And I clinked my glass, and I said, listen, guys, you all think that I am this dancer, Brenda Marshall. Right? No, my real name is Brenda Lebowitz. I'm like an ICU nurse in lower Manhattan. And this one guy grabbed me, and he told me something I will never forget. He said, Brenda, sit down, shut up. We think you are a star. You're on television every week. You are doing tours all over Europe. Shut up. You are who you say you are. And you are a star. And I went, okay, all right.
Plain and simple.
I'm a star.
Take it what it is.
And I never turned back. I came back to the United States. I still do my nursing thing, but I have written a number of novels, which now I'm getting a master's in fine arts, and I will take my novels that I wrote in my 20s, and I will embellish them so that the writing is something that I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
And, this is my next, that's an entrepreneur. Yeah. That's the spirit of an entrepreneur. Yeah. You have no idea what's coming next.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. It's called Becoming You, a Owner's Manual for Personal Happiness.
That's right.
Right? So
I'm happy already. We're already on Marshall number 2.
Martial law
take away the barriers.
Martial law, exactly.
They take away the barriers.
What I love about the laws is the law unleashes.
Yeah.
It unleashes who you are. Martial law number 3. You are responsible for everything that is in your life. You can choose to make snap decision, habitual decision, or planned decisions. You know that choosing snap or habitual decisions reduces your control over future circumstances or outcomes. But it is your choice to make those decisions over planned choices. Using faith, luck, or the impact of other people's choices on your life are no longer valid excuses.
Wow.
That's a long one.
But that's a great one.
No.
You're 3 for 3 right now.
Yeah, exactly.
The cool part about this is these are some of the conversations we have on this podcast. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, I know. When I read the book, I was like, wait a minute. This is crazy. Yeah. She has it. The nail has been struck. The nail has been struck. Yeah. For the simple fact, because if you really concentrate on what she's saying here, using faith, luck, or the impact of other people's choices on your life are no longer valid.
Yeah.
Leave those out.
Leave those out.
Plus, I say you should always have 3 alternatives. Somebody asks you to do something, and for me now, and for most of the people, because I'm also a psychotherapist, so I work with people, people get better. They don't stay with me forever.
Yeah,
They
right.
call me to tell me how their lives have really moved into new and miraculous places because they've unleashed this capacity, this power to move in a direction. So if somebody says to you, hey, do you want to go out to dinner tonight? Your answers can be, yes, I do want to go out to dinner tonight. The answer can be, no, I really don't want to go out to dinner. I have other plans. Or it could be, I'm on a brand new diet and I'm so restricted and I don't want to share that with anybody else. And you have to start and say to yourself, well, if I pick each one of these, what's going to happen? What's the next step? If I say yes, I might have a really great time. I might be able to pick the restaurant, and then something might come from that I have no idea where it's going to come from. And if I say no, I'm going to go home and eat celery or whatever it is on my new diet.
Right.
Or the third one, I think, is the most upsetting because you're saying, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed. I don't want to share something with somebody. When you and I first met, the first thing I said was, great game.
Yes.
Great game.
Yes.
I mean, what a great
Bring up to her husband,
conversation.
Dr. Lewis Marshall, by the way. Lewis Marshall. I met Lewis Marshall at the, and he's Brenda's husband, and he introduced me to his family, and it was just a wonderful. We were on a boat cruise for the New York the Healthcare Leaders of New York cruise for a couple of weeks ago, and I met Dr. Marshall and his wife Brenda Marshall, and it was just been. This lady just knows how to.
I did it to my husband. I got him on the first date, I think. So
Yeah. I can see that happening. Most definitely. And before we move on to the next law, let it be a constant reminder that you are in control of nothing else but yourself.
Well, it's not even yourself. It's your response. It's not even yourself.
We didn't even get into that.
We're not up there yet.
Yeah, we're not even up there
No,
yet.
we're not up there
Can
yet.
you break
but-
down this one a little bit more?
Yeah.
Number 3?
Yeah. Because on this one, you have to be able, a snap decision is a decision that you don't even think about what's going to happen next, and you don't really care what happened before. Marketers are really good. What do you see when you've gone through to do your weekly shopping, and you go past the cookies, you go past the chips, you go past the candy, you go past all the 59-cent rags that are going to tell you all the things that you really want to know but you're ashamed to buy. And then you finally, exhausted, push your cart to the checkout, and what's there? Everything that you have resisted up to that moment. But now you're tired. You have a 3-year-old. You have to know what happens to that child when you get in that checkout. I want this, and then there's a cry and a... So those snap decisions, entrepreneurs hope for it. You kind of get a person in a place and you want them not to think about what's going to happen next. I need $2 million invested in my company and it's going to yield over time, blah, 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 blah. The difference between the person who's successful, if you think of Shark Tank, is that person who goes on Shark Tank who thinks that they're going to get the snap decision by any one of those guys ends up getting a no.
Right.
The guy who goes in there and does the habitual, this is the way it was last week, this is the way it was last year, it has always worked, and this is the way I'm still doing it, that person also gets a resounding no. The only person who's going to get yes is the person who takes that snap and actually kneads it out like a pizza dough and figures out what's the best part of this, what's the part that you can actually say, I want this, so that when Mark turns around in another 2 years, you actually have an answer. Well, this is how much we grew in the last 6 months. This has been how much we've grown in the last 2 months. With this trajectory in the next 2 years, I can anticipate this, and the growth is going to go in this direction. That's not snap. That is planned. That is anticipating what barriers might come in front of you and figuring out, it's not going to be a barrier. One of my barriers when I worked in Paris was I needed work papers. But when I was a nurse and I was working in Mauritius, I came across a lot of people and I shared contacts. So when I needed a contact, I wasn't calling someone up who I hadn't spoken to. This was in the 1980s. This is somebody who I would write letters to, drop postcards to, with the anticipation. Every single person I know and every person I need. So I believe in God. I think God's put in front of me for some reason. And so I always think of those stories where that horrible, wicked person with the apple goes, oh, please, can I have $1? And it's the person who says, sure, don't give me the $1, I don't need your apple, eat your apple. Yeah. That's the person that all of a sudden the next day walks through a door and someone says, here, I got this for you. So you do the right thing for the right reason, and you plan on the fact that every person is there for a reason. You don't burn bridges. You're not mean.
Always do right. This will gratify some and astonish the rest.
That curtails into the martial law number 4.
Number 4.
Number 4 says, despite popular belief, wishing and hoping are not courses of action. They are not.
Nope.
You have not wished your way to this position, Gene. Okay.
No, I didn't. I didn't wish. No, definitely didn't.
You're not going to actually. When I was applying to go to Columbia, we have to write our personal essays, and in my personal essay, I had wrote this sentence that says, I have hoped for better, and I am wishing to make myself a greater person. Right?
Yeah.
Hold on. I had one of my, more established colleagues read my essay, and he said, you need to keep everything in the personal essay except for that sentence.
Yeah.
You need to get rid of that. You've worked for what you've gotten out of life. There's no more wishing and hoping, and I was like, makes sense, don't it?
It does make sense.
Yeah. The other thing is, all right, so I didn't go to Columbia. You guys just applied to Columbia. I went to Columbia? Is that? Okay.
Yeah,
so I went to NYU first.
Okay.
That's where I met my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went and interviewed, I was a little bit older than, just coming out of college. And they had said to me, well, how old do you think you're going to be when you graduate? And it reminded me of something my grandfather, who lived to 103, said to me. He said, it doesn't matter how old you are. It matters how long you live after.
Mm-hmm.
So to deny yourself or to say, I wish I could do this, if you like I said to you, I want to live another 25 years. I'm planning on it. I'm not one of those women rowing north and taking eventually out of my vocabulary. I'm saying this is where we're going to go. And you know what? I'm not wishing to go there. I'm not hoping that my book gets published. I have a publisher. I am working all of the people that I know to make sure that I have a great forward by somebody who's going to be well known in the field. I am not hoping that this is going to turn out right. I'm setting it all up so that plan A, if it doesn't work, plan B is going to work. If plan B doesn't work, plan C is going to work. If plan C doesn't work, I'll just reorganize the whole plan again, and I'll start again with A. And that's when my patients will come to me and they say, oh, I wish my life was different. I have a lot of people who've had trauma in their backgrounds. And so I say to them, so let's just pretend you got born today. Mm-hmm. This is the first day. What do you want to do, and how are we going to get there? We're not going to get there on a wish and a hope. Mm-hmm. Aladdin is not anywhere but on 42nd Street.
Right. Yeah. I was just telling Gene in another podcast that
4 for 4.
I'm writing a paper on aging in America and how we're aging, and some of the policies that are going to be needed to put in place to take care of the older or the elderhood of our country. And one of the things I've learned from doing this research is that instead of looking at the years we have lived, we should now take a look at the years we're going to live. They call it the prospective age. We're looking, you're not hoping to live that. You are going to live that.
Yeah, think of the word retire.
Right.
Retire. What does that mean? I mean, to me, it means put a new tire on the old tire and get a couple more miles out of it. But we all know what happens with that. You see the trucks, those retreads, those retires, they just explode and they make a big mess and slow you down. In Japan, there's no such word for retire. It doesn't exist. They have something called ikigai. And ikigai means your reason to get up in the morning. And instead of the idea of what am I going to do after I finish working, they have an ikigai. What makes you get up in the morning? What makes you get up? What's your ikigai? Your son is your ikigai. Give me something that's not somebody else.
Well, my legacy play. Yeah, it's my legacy play. Like, I want to leave an impact to younger entrepreneurs. So every day I get up to create a curriculum because I go into different schools around the country, around the city right now, but I plan on going around the country, around the world to inspire kids to open their own businesses.
So your ikigai is to be the best mentor.
Yes.
Of new entrepreneurs and new spirited people in the world. And that's an ikigai.
I like that.
And it doesn't matter if you are 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. If you wake up in the morning and say, actually, one of my colleagues who is from Kenya, her grandpa is 95 years old. He's a journalist. He traveled all over the world and traveled over the world when it wasn't easy to travel over the world. And he was leaving her a message. She was actually with him, but they were making a video. And he said to her, well, I'm still here. You know, I'm still here. What do we do now? If this is the last day, it's okay, but let's do something good today. And that's an ikigai, getting up and saying,
I love it.
This is my life purpose. This is what wakes me up in the morning.
Martial law number 5 then. Listen.
Oh, it's getting heated.
You are responsible for the life you have right now.
Live in the moment.
Every choice you have made up to and including today has created the life you lead at this moment.
I believe it.
Martial law number 5.
And that's scary.
It is
because that means that if you make a decision, that is your decision, and you live with that decision. And it's not somebody else. That brings us all the way back to 2. Nobody else is making you do these things. These are the things that you're choosing. These are the things that you're deciding. So that is your choice. So every decision you make has brought you to this point. If you keep making the same stupid decisions, you're not going to wake up in a different place.
Yes, it's true.
It's insanity. Einstein defined, right?
Yeah. That's right.
Right. Can't be doing the same thing and expecting a different result. It's just craziness, lunacy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I love it.
Martial law number 6. You are only in control of your response to your environment.
Yeah.
When you choose to give up control of your behavioral response, either through snap or habitual decision making, you have chosen to relinquish your control over your future. Someone else will step in, and your behavior has given the permission.
So the greatest person who has done this is Martin Luther King. Think about it.
Let's think about it.
They wanted him to have snap decisions. They threw everything. And what did he do? He trained people not to react. To be their best selves and not be a responsive, reactive person. When I'm working with my clients, I make a big circle and I write and I put a line through it, and then I write act. It is always within your power to act in your own best interest. A while back, I was in a situation where people were actually making me feel pretty terrible about myself. And I had to step back and recall this idea. Who is my own best self? Who do I want to be? I don't want to be this person who's going to be angry with those people who are blocking the way that I've so carefully planned to get on plan A to that area. And so I sat back and I did an application to become a Fulbright Scholar, which had nothing to do with anything else in the world. And people said to me, well, Fulbright Scholar, that's not anything you ever said you wanted to be. Well, I didn't know about it. I mean, the people who are listening to this, they have Fulbrights for entrepreneurs. They have a Fulbright Scholar Specialist where you can go overseas for anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 weeks. That you don't have to go for a whole semester. They have Fulbrights for students where you can go and you can live in a Muslim country so that you can begin to understand that there is no such thing as the other. We are all the same. And so this whole idea of stepping back and saying, wait a second, I'm not going to go in the direction that these people are pushing me in. I'm not going to react to them. I'm not going to be having negative energy come out. At one point in my life, I was in a situation where people pretended I didn't exist. Well, you guys know what that feels like, to walk into a room and people just don't even see you. They don't want to hear what you say, all right?
Yeah.
And instead, I turned around to this woman who was with me, and before we went in, I said, you have to see my magic. I have some of the most amazing magic. I'm going to take my invisibility cloak and I'm going to put it on me. And I want you to observe how an invisibility cloak works. And we walked into this very big meeting and they asked for some suggestions. And I said, I have a suggestion. And they said, if no one has a suggestion, we'll continue. And this woman who was with me just burst out laughing. And when someone said, why are you laughing? She said, because the invisibility cloak is working. One of the things is sometimes when people are not recognizing you or not giving you the respect that you need, if you get angry with them, guess what? They own you.
They won.
They own you.
Yeah.
They haven't even won. They own you, lock, stock, and barrel, because your response is going to be to them and not towards the goal that you have. You have to stay focused on what your goal is.
And you know what the funny thing about that is? The funny thing about that is, I got a quick story. So, the other day, I decided to go get something to eat, right? So I drive up the block and I pull around a corner and I pull over and I parked in the parking spot. I get out of my vehicle and I walk to the store. And when I'm walking to the store, the guy who owns the tire shop said, hey, buddy, can you move your car? And I was like, move my car for what? He was like, because I'm saving the spot for my customers, and when they come up, they can have a... I was like, well, you can't do that because it's the city. You can't block off the city street for your customers. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I got to go get my food. So I come out with my food, and he goes, oh, I see you got your little handicap parking permit. And I said, no, it's a disability permit. Yeah. And he goes, well, you know, I'm going to give you a break because you got that. And I was like, what? I'm like, okay, so listen, by the way, I'm going to report you for blocking up the streets here. And he goes, oh, you're a handicapped, no, you're a retard and a snitch. I was like, but the minute that I would have responded to that type of, you know, that type of confrontation, he would have won.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't have been he won. He would have owned you.
He would have owned me.
Because you would have become the person he was trying to make you into.
Yeah.
Sometimes I pretend I don't speak English.
Martial law number 7.
I can hear you. I can see you.
Emotional tornadoes are never worth the thrill of the ride. Preparation in advance is the only antidote. Once you are on the ride, you have chosen reaction over action. Your control over your ability to act is gone. Get to safety before making any major decisions. How about that?
7 for 7 right now.
It can save you a lot of money, a lot of heartache, a lot of times it's relationships.
But the guy, the parking guy, if I would have got out and smacked him,
right? You would have been in trouble.
Yeah. it would have been a whole nother thing. It would have been a whole. It's not worth the ride.
Yeah.
When you take it into the I statement, the other person can't say anything. If you say you are being a bully, the other person says, "No, I'm not. This is what everybody told me I was supposed to do. It's not my fault." If you say, "I'm really disappointed. This is great with a 3-year-old. I'm really disappointed. I thought that I could rely on my child to live up to my expectation of eating one piece of broccoli." Wow. And the kid will say, "Okay, just one. Right, just one."
That's good.
And they'll go ahead. But if you say, "You better eat that broccoli," the kid will go, and they won't like you. They'll be resisting. And you want to take away resistance. Resistance is never good.
Yeah, no.
When you hit resistance, you have to say, "What am I doing? What am I in control of that I can help just take away this resistance and walk towards where I need to go?"
Martial law number 8. Accepting things because that's the way things are produces a false sense of comfort. To become accustomed to and to support behaviors because they occur is a predictable, repeatable pattern and a recipe for disaster. Period.
But we have fallback behaviors. We all have fallback behaviors. There are things that we do that we don't even know that we do. For example, you both have your phones right out in front of you. So, like, I take my phone, I put it away. It's none of my business. When I'm doing this, I'm 110% here.
Yeah.
When I'm teaching, I tell my students, I don't even want you to have your computers open. Anything you want to know, I'll tell you afterwards. I want you to listen to me. You need to be present in yourself, because what you miss at that moment is everything. It's everything. And then you start falling back into these fallbacks. Oh, this is the way I do it. Well, this is the way I dress. Well, this is how I get to home. I had one patient who was just a great woman, and she said to me, "I don't think I can do this anymore." And I said to her, if you were driving home and suddenly the road to your house, like one of the tributary roads to your house, was closed, would you get out of the car and say, "Well, there it goes. I'm not going home. I'm stuck here. I guess I'll live here"? No, you'd sit back. If you had GPS, you'd Waze. Right?
Waze.
We'll get a new way of getting home. But with our own personal lives, we are very hesitant to want to take a new road.
Why do you think that is?
Because the unknown for some people is scary. We can think, "I know what's going to happen tomorrow if I go here." But you have no idea. Yeah. That's like the most exciting part about life and being an entrepreneur. You have no idea what's going to happen next. On that same boat ride, there was a young man who I talked to who he identified himself as a nurse at Mount Sinai, and he was going to go for his doctoral degree, and he was going to go to a school that I know somebody who went there, and I've stayed friends with this guy. Now, I wanted to go to that school, but they wouldn't take me because I was too old. So they took this other guy. And I said to him, "They're going to take you because you're young and you're European and very romantic, and I'm old and white, and who cares about me anyway?" But then I became friends with him, and we have maintained a friendship over all these years, since 2011. So I connected this new young guy who's going to go to this university with this other guy who just was appointed as an attaché to the undersecretary of the VA.
Wow.
And you know what? I'm so glad that he did that, because that's not what I would have done with that degree, but that's what that degree should go to. So when you start thinking about doing things the same old way, when I got rejected from that school, I said to myself, what did I really want to go there for? I wanted to go there because I wanted to know how to read functional magnetic resonance imaging machines. That's what I wanted. I wanted to prove that psychotherapy changes the way we think, that we can change something that makes you really scared, that automatically happens in your brain, by having you reframe that story. So I'm a sensory motor psychotherapist, and I look at trauma a different way than a lot of other psychotherapists. And so what did I do? I went and I signed up for the Harvard fMRI course, and I went to Harvard instead. And then I got funding to do a funded research study to find out, how do our brains react to scary stories? And thank goodness my grandfather got out of Hungary, but most everyone and 15 people in his family were murdered in the Holocaust. Well, I think to myself, gee, this is an opportunity to be able to say, well, I'm carrying forward this legacy, and I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to figure out where it's going. How am I going to get there? I'm not going to wake up and say, I know what's happening tomorrow, because I don't know what's happening tomorrow. I wake up in the morning, I say, oh, God, thank you so much for giving me another chance to do something good.
Yeah.
I go to sleep at night, I say, oh, God, thank you so much. This has been a really good day. Please just keep everybody safe who I love. And probably the ones I don't love, too, but I'm really focused on my own.
Right.
Yeah.
Martial law number 9. You cannot expect anyone else to save you. Hoping and wishing are not action verbs, nor are they reliable plans of action to get out of the vacuum of loss. Each person must develop skills to save him or herself. Waiting to be rescued will no longer be accepted as a valid strategic plan of action.
Oof, waiting to be rescued.
Yeah.
Ew,
You know how that you spell waiting to be rescued? REGRET. Regret.
Oh.
Wow.
Because you wait and you wait and you wait, and nobody shows up, and the false ones show up and say, I can do this for you and I can do that for you. Come on with me. Next thing you know, you've just lost another $250,000.
Oh my gosh.
And this person, has disappeared from your life. No one's going to save you. You have to have a plan. If you know where you're going, you're going to get there. If you have no idea where you're going, then any road is going to take you there. Any bus will take you there. And when you get off and you find yourself, in an area that you say, this is not where I was going.
Kalamazoo.
You say, why did you get on the bus?
Right.
Well, I thought maybe it would take me there. Someone told me. No, do your homework.
Yeah.
Know where you want to go.
Yeah.
You may not be able to go. You may not be able to get to Kalamazoo. Maybe that's really where you wanted to go.
Right,
you may not be able to get to Kalamazoo until you figure out how to get out of Newark. I know that I can get B's and then be just shocked and surprised when you find out you get A's. Yeah, like push yourself, allow yourself to believe in you. Most of us don't believe in us. We think somebody else is going to come along and help us. This was, I'm a female. A lot of females think, oh, I'm waiting for my Prince
I'm going to marry rich. I'm going to marry rich.
Well, that's why my daughter, I told her, you're going to be a doctor. Yeah. And you're going to be someone else's Princess Charming.
Martial law number 10. All change is loss. Plan for it and understand that loss of any kind will produce a vacuum. All vacuums are unstable and seek to be stabilized. Before you change a behavior, learn your replacement behavior. I like this one because I love this one because, Doc, self-efficacy.
Yeah.
When we talk about that word, you go into details in the book about self. Just give us a little inkling of what that really means.
Okay, so first of all, the idea of every single change is lost. Whether or not you change your toothbrush, that's going to be lost, because if you used an electric toothbrush and then you've gone on your trip and you realize you don't have it and you call down and they send up this little plastic
one.
And it's soft and it's disgusting, and you think, oh God, I wish I had my own one.
Right,
of course,
right.
Wishing, no. But that wish all of a sudden puts you back into I'm just going to replace it with anything. I'm just going to, instead of saying, next time I'm going to buy a second toothbrush. I'm just going to leave it in my backpack so that no matter where I am, I have what I want and what I need.
Exactly.
When loss becomes a little bit bigger, unfortunately, you really start looking to replace it. And the thing that you're going to replace it with, just like a vacuum, is whatever is nearby. So, let's say it's a relationship. You break up with someone you know is no good for you. It's been bad for the past couple of months. You've just been hanging in there. You break up with them. You go out, you have a couple of beers, and you say, I'm lonely. And what happens? You go to your phone and you
start looking for that.
Right to that number and say, I'm so depressed.
Come see me.
And the next day you say,
why did I do that?
Why am I back here?
I'm back in here again. Same thing with jobs. You stay in a job, and I can't tell you how many people I see, and they say, well, I only have 7 years till I get my pension.
Yeah.
7 years. That's 365 days in every single year.
Yeah.
That's 24 hours in every single one of those days.
Yeah.
And it's torture.
Yeah.
And you may not make it.
Yeah, you may not make it.
Because
may not make it.
Working with idiots
you may not
makes
make it.
you have heart disease.
Yeah, you may not make it.
So you may have to find yourself another job, and that job might just save you.
Save you.
You can't anticipate the degree of loss that you're going to experience, but you can say, you know what? I want to change my job. I'm going to start looking now. I still have this terrible, but I'm going to start looking. I'm going to start saying, what else can I do? That's when I did my Fulbright. I thought, well, maybe I won't be staying in this job, but if I do Fulbright, I can sort of jump around and test out some other waters.
Yeah, of course.
So you want to be able to make sure that if you know that a change is coming, if you know that you're going to be moving from one office to another office, make sure that you know where those holes are going to be so that you don't find yourself falling down in one of them and going back like to the unreliable person who's always there.
So talk about the replacement behavior.
So the replacement behavior, an easy way to think about the replacement behavior is if you are somebody who is giving up alcohol or giving up smoking. I was a smoker. I gave up smoking, so I'll go with smoking. And the way I did it the first time, because, in order to give anything up really permanently, you do a lot of false starts.
Okay.
That makes you better.
Yeah.
And then you finally get to it. But the first time, I went and I was working at Beth Israel, and I had a good alibi. Oh, my God, I had the best undermining alibi. People would say, why do you smoke? You're an ICU nurse. Why do you smoke? And I'd say, well, no. Everybody else, when they take their break, they have to stay in the ICU. But because I'm a smoker, I get to go out into the park. So this is why I do it, because that way and you're going to die of something anyway, when you're like 23, right? You're going to die of something anyway. At least I'm choosing what I'm going to die by. And so those were my undermining alibis. But then when I realized that I really didn't want to be smoking anymore, I started bringing seltzer water around with me. And whenever I wanted a cigarette, I would open up the seltzer water and I would drink some seltzer water, which kind of fills you with bubbles.
Yeah,
you can't drink it fast. You have to drink it slow. And I was really good. I mean, I got off cigarettes for quite a long time until something else happened. I felt lost. Probably was when my parents died. And then I just went back to cigarettes because it was an easy thing. I had nothing else to fill that giant void.
Yeah.
But that's the replacement theory. So if you know that something's coming up, being able to replace it with something else. For some people, if they're very anxious, they might play with their hair. All right. So playing with your hair might be a nice thing, or pulling on your beard might be a nice thing, right? But if you're talking to somebody and you're trying to get a job or something, this might become an irritation for the person. They may say, well, I can't sit across, from Jeffrey and watch him doing this all the time. I think that he's the thinker, like, what's he thinking about? When in fact, he's just doing this because it's his habit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there are these little rings that have like little balls on them and stuff. I'll tell people, get a ring and play with the ring, because nobody sees that you're playing with your ring. You can just have your hands down here, and it takes up. It's a replacement for a habitual behavior that sometimes works against you.
I got you. Nice. Martial law number 11. It is the craft person, not the tool, that brings success. The tool in your toolbox are only as effective as the person who used them. A tool used incorrectly or on the wrong job will not successfully achieve the desired goal. The more practice the user has, the better the tool performs.
I love this one too.
So this comes from the whole idea of the toolbox.
Yeah.
All right. So if you have toolboxes.
Chapter 15, I think it was.
Yeah.
Chapter 15.
Chapter 15.
Yeah,
So you have to know what you're looking to gain out of using a specific tool. It's not my statement. I don't know who said it, but they say if all you got is a hammer, then everything starts looking like a nail. It's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the health field or in an entrepreneur's field. If all you have is fast talk, it's only going to get you to a certain point, and then there's this terrible cliff, and then you're left with nothing.
We were just talking about that, the writer's toolbox. The things that are in your toolbox is not going to be the same tools that in your toolbox as in mine. Right. But the tools that are in my toolbox, I have to know how to use those efficiently and effectively in order to get this thing written right?
Exactly.
Successfully. So
when my husband became a lawyer, it was very bizarre to me because a lawyer doesn't write the same way somebody who's a writer writes. It's a completely different language.
Totally.
And so his tools in being able to write a brief is totally different than my tools in being able to write a book. You got to know what your tools are and what tools you're needing.
How do we say we don't have some tools in our toolbox?
Yeah.
How do we get those tools? What do we got to do to get those tools to help us be more successful and to become ourselves like we really want to be?
Okay,
and become great entrepreneurs.
Well, the first thing is honesty.
Honesty.
Right?
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. Being able to sit down and say, the last 3 meetings that I had all went south, and I've got to find myself a mentor that I can actually say, this is exactly how the meeting went. All 3 of them ended up terrible. And I need to change. I can't change those people. I have to change me. And being able to say, what do I need to do better? And so it's really hard to take criticism, but it's through criticism that we actually grow into becoming the right person. And then testing. I'll say to people, when you started to walk, your son is 3. So if he runs and he falls down, you don't say, you better stay there. You did that bad. That's bad. You just stay there. I'll pick you up. I'll carry you from now on. No, you say, get up. You just tried it. And maybe you need a different pair of shoes. Maybe if we think about ourselves the way we would think about a little baby, we're learning every step of the way. Life is not, you cannot tell me that you know exactly where you're going to be next week or tomorrow. You got to just wake up in the morning and say, what are the tools that I need to get through this day? I was worried about coming in here. So what am I going to do? What are they going to ask me? Who cares? Right? Show up. Be present. Listen. And be part of it. For this one also, there was we jumped over the pig pen theory.
Oh yeah, the pig pen. We jumped over. We jumped over. Listen, the pro approach, the pig pen theory.
Oh, that's my favorite.
You're gonna have to read the book.
And I had to get permission. I had to get permission from the Schultz people.
Yeah, no,
because they want to make sure that I wasn't doing something bad to pig pen.
No, it was I'm telling you. This book is a concise and precise way of getting happyful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yes.
Can you explain the pig pen?
Well, the idea is, if you remember Pigpen, he was like that little boy who had all those dust and dirt all around him. Yeah. And I said, if you can just imagine that every single one of those little pieces of dust is a memory or a bad thing that happened or a good thing that happened, but it's all about him. It's all the places he's been, but it's all emotionally charged. Mm-hmm. And they come into your house, and they're getting your house all dirty with all their soot and dust, and you don't think that's cute. It's not cute. And if you're a person with a lot of dust and you get together with them, you end up with a tornado. Because there's so much emotionally charged stuff in the air. But if you can recognize your own pig pennishness, if you're able to dampen down some of that emotional energy and recognize the fact that not everybody wants your stuff, like give yourself a chance to just walk in and figure out where you are. Don't react to your situation. Be present with yourself. Figure out, what do I want from this? Where is this going to take me? if it's not a good place, go home.
And the thing
it's okay to leave the party.
And the thing about
it's okay to leave the party.
And the thing about the Pigpen theory is that Pigpen was happy with his pigpenness.
And so were his good friends. They didn't even notice it. And his family, they don't even notice it.
And that's what I was about to get. The friends were very delightful in Pigpen. They never said, ew, Pigpen.
Right.
Yeah. They were like, that's Pigpen.
Yeah. And then he goes to get money to invest in his entrepreneurial adventure, and people say, ew, this guy's messing up my office. He's bringing all this stuff in.
Exactly.
So that's the Pigpen theory.
Martial law number 12, the final law, and I think we're going to have to do some reflective, I want to say mantra on this type of a law, but it's important because it says any extreme emotion can open the door to a disaster. Okay? Happiness, sadness, anger, and envy, when taken to the extreme, destabilize the emotional environment and create ideal conditions for an emotional tornado.
Powerful.
So I used to work with children, right? I worked with gifted and talented children, and I also work with kids with serious learning disabilities. And with one of the groups of the kids with serious learning disabilities, I was told by the school they really can't write. They just, they can't focus enough. They don't have the vocabulary. Although they're in sixth grade, they're really more like second graders. So I went in and I'm talking to all the kids and I said, who here cannot write like 3 words? And they're like, everybody can write 3 words because, they were still in sixth grade. Right. They were still like 12-year-olds. And they were big because they're 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, I want you just to write 3 words down of like the worst day of your life. And they all wrote down 3 words. And we took that 3 words, and over a period of 5 weeks, we expanded it into a sentence, into a paragraph, into 3 paragraphs, which was a story. And I will never forget, there was one young man, and he had to be 6 feet tall, really big kid. Mm-hmm. And he had ADHD, and he had some other communication disorder. And so they would mainstream him for certain classes. Mm-hmm. And his story was that, and it was about being so happy and losing it for being happy. So he was in this class, and at the end of the school day, the teacher said to him, I'll just call him Max because I call everybody Max. He said, Max, you did a great job today. You were like the perfect student, and for that, I'm going to let you go out first before everybody else. And Max raised himself up to his 6 foot height. And he walked over to his buddy, and he went, I'm better than you. And then he walked over another and goes, better than you, too. And he started, like, walking around the room, like, Max, I'm going first. Because he was more like a 3rd grader than a 6th grader. Right. And the teacher said, Max, sit down. That is not appropriate. Sit down. And Max thought to himself, I don't want to sit down. If I pick up the chair, I can't sit down. That's all he thought. He was not trying to hurt anybody. And he went and he picked up his chair. And the teacher thought he was going to attack her. And she called the principal. Meanwhile, here's this 6 foot guy with a chair over his head saying, I can't sit down. I'm not going to sit down. I can't sit down. And his concrete thinking is, I can't sit down. And yet, when his parents got there and his mom and dad were crying because he was doing so well in school and now he's going to get detention and thrown out of school for a week, he said, if I had, and what we wrote about was if this whole idea that was that if you could talk to your younger self, and now that's very popular, but this was like quite a few years ago, if you could talk to your younger self, what is one piece of advice that you'd give them based upon this one experience that you had? And his was that it doesn't matter why you are extreme, whether it's extreme happiness, extreme sadness, extreme anger, extreme anything, you stand to lose everything. It's that reactive state of getting out of being aware of yourself, and instead of being able to stand up and say to the teacher, thank you so much, I can't wait to tell my parents, they're going to be so proud of me. he had to kind of put it in the face of all the people who normally got to leave before him and bullied him. That's very reactive. They should not matter in his life. Keep in mind who matters, and you have to be the first person who matters.
That's right. Well, I mean, it's been a very interesting show. We went through the martial laws. The 12 martial laws, I think, are very imperative.
They are. If you're going to be successful and happy.
You should definitely we didn't even get into the orthodox optimism. We didn't get into a lot of things in the book. The actions of joyfulness or happyful, how to be happyful. We didn't get into any of that, but you got to read the book. You guys got to get the book.
Yeah, go get the book.
Becoming You. Okay,
it's iUniverse Press, and it's on Amazon.
Yes, it's on Amazon. Go ahead, Gene. Tell her.
So I want to ask you a question. Like what?
Just what I wanted mantra. I'm sorry, something just came to me again. The Just What I Wanted mantra. Tell them a little bit about the Just What I Wanted mantra. Jeff
is excited. I love seeing this.
We're never going to end, though.
I know. We got to end.
We'll have to do another one on Just What I Wanted mantra.
Yeah.
All right. I'll come back.
All right.
I'll come back.
All right. Fair enough.
So what mindset do you think is something that entrepreneurs could take away like today? What do you think they could use to become like really successful in their day-to-day business?
To become them.
Well, the first thing is that you have to be able to identify what makes you happy, what other people are going to tell you. If you're doing this because you want to make $1 million, or $5 million, or $8 million, you might find yourself straying off onto a pathway that doesn't make you happy with yourself. That $8 million might make you give up some of your soul. And if you're not being careful on the walk there, you might find that you're having a hard time getting out once you're in.
And getting back.
So you want to stay true to yourself. You want to be able to wake up in the morning and figure out, what is it that makes me happy? Writing makes me really happy. I've always wanted to be able to write and publish my novel. And you know what? It's taken me a long time, but I'm getting there. And I've been writing every single day. And every day that I write makes me a better writer. So that every day counts for me as being a perfect success.
Okay.
And if you're an entrepreneur, you can't go to bed at night thinking, I should have done this and I should have done that. And if I could do this over, I wish I had done that. You're going to stay up. You're going to stay up too late. So your first thing is, it's behavioral. Go to sleep early. You need to be able to get 8 hours of sleep. Your brain doesn't work very well if you're not getting a lot of sleep. You're going to start being reactive. You're going to start latching on to people who make you ridiculous promises. If it looks too good to be true, it is too good to be true. Find out and then make some planned decisions to move yourself in the direction of that dream that person gave you. There's a way to get there. You might start backwards and start at the end point and say, how did I get here? I see myself in my Tesla driving down the road. How did I get to the Tesla? Oh, wait a second. I had to do this and then I had to do that. I had to start out a little bit small. I had to make people trust me. How to make people know that I'm real and that when they invest with me, I care about them. I care about their money, and I care about moving us to a place that is going to give more out. I think about those guys who started out by cleaning up the beaches, by picking up little pieces of plastic. You know who I'm talking about? And now they have I don't remember the name of it, but they make beads and little bracelets from the plastic that they've cleaned up. They now have thousands and thousands of people working for them. They started out by a bunch of friends just saying, this beach is disgusting and it should be cleaned up. And now they are making lots and lots of money and giving back to the earth. You want to make sure that what you're doing is true to you. And I am also helping people. And you can do that too. You got to know that the first place you start is in school. That's the first place you start. You start critically thinking. You start understanding who you are. It doesn't matter if you finish school, you don't finish school. That critical thinking piece and that piece of, I have to make it better for somebody else, that's when it starts coming back to you. And that's when happiness can set in.
Happyful.
And you can become happyful.
Happyful.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's wrap it up. So
this was a powerful interview.
Yeah,
I love you.
Definitely.
I love you too.
Tell us where we can reach you and where you can see your websites.
If you go on the website, it is bmarshallauthor.com.
Okay.
And it has my books on there. And hopefully the next book will be out probably in the spring. And you'll invite me back to talk about that.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So I want to thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you very much.
Please.
Always say yes.
Yes, always say yes. You're right. And so you can catch us every Wednesday. I want to say thank you guys for tuning in to another great episode of Faith Grind Inspire podcast.
That's right.
Thank you to the OG Podcast Network. Thank
Big
you to our
Tim.
Producers, Tim, Jamie.
Riri, where you at?
Yeah, Riri. Shout out to Stefan, that is our guest producer today and in charge. Thank you to Dr. Marshall's daughter, Olivia. Shout out to you. Yeah. Thank you for being one of our guests today. And so every Wednesday, go to faithgrindinspire.com, OG Podcast Network, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And check us out. Tune in. YouTube. You can watch this video on YouTube.
Definitely.
And thank you.
My hair.
No, you're perfect. And thank you guys. And let's continue. Go support her book and
Becoming You.
And becoming you.
The owner's manual. The owner's manual.
You are responsible. It's your choice.
All right.
Keep going. Wait. We have one question we didn't ask you. See, Jeff?
Me?
Out of the 3 words, faith, grind, inspire, which one resonates with you?
Inspire.
Inspire. Why?
Well, because I inspire faith. Faith in yourself.
Believe in inspires everyone.
Everyone. You inspired me. I'm like lost for words today. Because I was like, I just wanted to listen, you know?
No, becoming you.
Yeah, becoming you.
Definitely.
So thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys.
Yeah, definitely. See you guys next week.
Keep shining and keep inspiring.
Yeah.
Peace.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.